Okay, is the government spying on you while you're in your car? And if it's for your own safety, is that okay? That is one of the questions we'll be discussing on today's program of Vantage Point.
Vantage Point is brought to you by American Vision. For more information on today's show, check out How to Argue with a Liberal and Win. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.
And Joel, what do you think?
Is it spying on us? Of course it's spying on us. Was it right? Is that the question?
Yeah, is it okay if it's for your own safety?
Oh, of course not. I mean, we have laws up there for privacy and to keep us from being unduly searched and all that kind of stuff. I think this plays into that. Of course, the problem is it's a legal question, because are they really invading you if they're just doing it with an X-ray? And I suspect it'll go to the courts eventually. I mean, there are cases in the courts right now that are parallel to that. It's where the FBI snuck on this guy's property and put a GPS unit on his Jeep because they suspected he was growing marijuana. And I don't remember if it turned out he did or not, but in one case in the Washington, D.C. Appellate District Court, they struck it down and said the government can't do this. And the exact same level of court, I believe, in Ninth Circuit upheld the government's right to do that. So it's going to be interesting. It's obviously going to go to the Supreme Court. But can the government spy on you if it suspects you're doing something wrong? Well, I think that's the whole reason to have laws and to limit the powers of government. It shouldn't be able to invade your privacy just because it thinks you're doing something wrong. You're supposed to have to be able to prove that you need a warrant.
This is what's happening, though. These vans, there's 500 of these vans that look like an average delivery van you might see in your town, and they're equipped with mobile X-ray devices, and they're just scanning at random. There's no real cause.
On the highway, on public property.
Right, that's the question.
That may be one of the ways they're getting around this, because they're not going after specific individuals. They're doing this, or we're not spying on individual people. We're just canvassing vehicles as they come through, and if we spot anything. But this has always been an issue.
It's a roaming checkpoint, basically.
Right. Well, this has been the issue with probable cause and a traffic stop.
Yeah.
Why did I stop your car? Well, it looks like it's a low rider. There's greater incidence among low riders of drug trafficking or illegal aliens, and so we stopped your car. Therefore, we need to check your trunk or to check the back of your van and so forth. And that has always been an issue. It goes into the court and say, well, was there any cause other than you suspected something based upon certain statistics related to all this?
Right.
I think this.
But if it's statistics, then you can start doing race and
profiling,
weight, and everything else. You can.
Right.
Statistics cover everything.
And since the president's wife, Michelle Obama, has been scolding or admonishing restaurants to serve apples instead of fries and lowering the salt content. And of course, there have been some states that have forced compliance on trans fats and have gone into restaurants and said, "Look, you can't do this." So was the next step saying, "Boy, most obesity comes about from parents, not monitoring their children's diet." So do we now put monitors on refrigerators? Do we put every time you go out into a checkout and you say, "Okay, how many children do you have and how much do they weigh?" and you put it in there, and then as you run your thing through the barcode, think, you're over the fat limit in terms of content here.
Yeah, except it's not so absurd, because some public school districts are using body mass index and body fat count, or however they get that, and sending it home on records just for the parents to see with
you may not be eligible.
Permission slips, and stuff like that.
You may not be eligible for health care soon, because the government is actually considering doing national BMI weighing and indexing.
Yeah. So once you start this, and people say, I'm not doing anything wrong. I don't mind anybody scanning my van or whatever the case is. I'm not doing anything wrong. But once you set a precedent for that, and the courts then start setting legislation regarding that, and then lower courts get involved, and now it becomes this octopus of entanglement. And it was like the RICO statute. Years ago, the RICO statute was dealt with racketeering. It was designed specifically for racketeering, mafia type cases. And so some smart pro-abortion lawyer came along and says, we can take that law, even though it was applied to racketeering, and we can apply it to interstate commerce regarding abortion. So if you had a group in Atlanta that went to another state and protested against the illegal abortion industry, then the RICO statute was applicable. And they went back and interviewed the fellow who actually developed the RICO statute, and he says it had nothing to do with that. It has simply to do with racketeering. So once you get one of these vague, seemingly good laws on the books, with the way the courts are today, you can turn that around and make it apply to anything.
Yeah, what happens is you're giving government that little bit more of power. It's just a little bit more power they have, and what can be used for good one day can be used for evil the next day, and that's exactly what's happened all through American history, all through world history. The more governments get power, the more it eventually gets abused. That's just the way it is. And
we've seen this with the courts, especially. Here you have unelected judges out in California. The people vote, not overwhelmingly, but in the millions to uphold the traditional biblical marriage of one man, one woman, Proposition 8. One judge comes along and says, nah, I've given all this criteria by which this vote doesn't count. And so once these things get into the courts, you never know how they're going to rule. And one person makes a decision and then shuts down and changes the law throughout the whole state.
Yeah, and basically this you were talking about the health issues. Basically, it's the left's version of prohibition. We had demon rum back then, and today now we have demon salt and demon trans fat, and so we got to wipe this out. We got to ban these things.
We got to package. We can package that demon trans fat.
That's right. Yeah. I'm going to make a T-shirt for it. Now we have got Mama Obama's war on salt.
Right. I mean, you really think about it. I mean, prohibition was a disaster in the United States.
Absolutely,
it's ridiculous. Speakeasies, and we're fighting a the drug culture today. But I mean, you had all types of illegal activity. You had the rise of Al Capone as a result of prohibition.
And the Kennedys.
And the Kennedys.
Well,
That's right.
While we're talking about health and government intervention into our private lives, if you don't already own an Apple computer, you may go out and buy one after this next story. Bill Gates of Microsoft goes on television and says that he is for death panels. I mean, after all, if it costs $1 million to extend your life maybe 3 months, couldn't that money be used to hire teachers in a poor school district?
Yeah.
It's really big of Bill Gates to say that.
Judas argued, right? Can't this money be better spent elsewhere than? But anyway, he's on record. I think he's giving a TED talk at this kind of technology conventions and said something about the use of vaccines in third world countries to decrease the population. So I mean, and this is all over the internet. It's one of those things that gets brushed under the carpet by the media and then labeled as conspiracy theory. But
would Bill Gates, a billionaire, multi-billionaire, would he would spend every dime he could to extend his life? There's no doubt about it.
Yeah, probably he has the means to do so. And look.
So why can't I spend the little dimes that I have?
Well, here's the thing. And I think that's part of the issue. Yeah. We're not spending those dimes. Mm-hmm. Someone else is spending those dimes to keep us alive. Right. And this is a discussion those on the right, I think, don't want to talk about. Mm-hmm. When someone else is footing the bill to pay for $100,000, $200,000, $300,000, $400,000, $500,000 to keep you alive, it's no big deal. If I said, I want you two to spend all the money that you can to keep me alive, well, why not?
Yeah.
So you might want to pick someone who's got more money.
Right. Well, I'm just assuming you'll be rich one of these days by the time I die. So, but the thing is, we've created a healthcare system that someone else is footing the bill.
And so it's so ingrained in national psyche, even conservatives accepted. I remember there was an argument that was made, I think, by Gary North during the Terry Schiavo incident. All these conservative Christians were gathering together saying how wrong it was to have this life be terminated, or the possibility that it would be. And where were any of them coming out and saying, okay, well, I'll put up the money to continue the feeding? No, it's because it was being paid for by a government insurance plan, or at least an insurance plan regulated by the government.
And years ago, these were decisions that were made by families. I remember my grandmother on my mother's side, she was brought into the home of one of her children. My mother grew up, she had 11 brothers and sisters. She was brought home. You have a hospice where people who are, look, they're not going to make it. They die. They make this decision to die on their own. And a lot of it, I don't want to be crass about this, but it is an economic decision in many cases.
But it's in the family.
It's in the family
right.
making this decision. But when you've got someone else making the decisions, paying for it, it makes it easier for you to go out and spend money. When it's your own money, like my wife just called me, she wants to buy a piece of art for one of our rooms. She told me how much it was, and I said, well, I'm going to have to think about it. It's my money. But if I said, well, Brandon's going to pay for it, I'd say, sure, go get it.
Yeah, that's right.
And we understand it at that level, but we don't often understand it.
So in one sense, Bill Gates may be right in the sense that if the public's paying for it, the public does have the right, in one sense, to decide whether or not they're going to spend the money to keep you alive.
Again,
but the public shouldn't be paying for it.
He's not addressing the issue. He's the same guy who's lamenting the fact that he can't get good programmers over here because of our immigration laws. And so he built I think it's Microsoft, built a factory not a factory, but a set up business in Canada because they have better laws. So he even understands the problems that governments create with all of this. He says the public school system stinks, the immigration policies are ridiculous, and so what I'm going to do is I'm going to get around all this with my own money, and I'm going to build a business in Canada, and I can better manage this personally. He needs to take that same attitude regarding his own business and apply it to healthcare and education.
Absolutely.
Sounds good. Okay.
And there's an interesting aspect here is the fact that all of this was being vehemently denied by the left when the debate was going on.
Yes.
No, there are no death panels. Sarah Palin should have never, she's just sensationalism, and now he's actually calling it, or death panels or something.
I think
he's at least very clear about the issue.
I think he says, well, it's not something people want to talk about. But he was, of course, now it's already law, and so now he can talk about it.
Now it's okay to pretend we're bold in talking about it. Yeah, of course.
Well, that's it for today's program. Join us next time on Vantage Point and send your emails to vantagepoint@americanvision.org. Thank you.
For more information on today's show, check out How to Argue with a Liberal and Win, edited by Joel McDermott. Countering dozens of liberal arguments with logic and tact, How to Argue with a Liberal and Win is a crash course on defending the principles of liberty from her enemies, and gives realistic, educated answers to some of the most persistent cliches of socialism. You will find it at AmericanVision.com.
Okay, well, let's quit talking about it and let's get it done.
Get her done.
Get her done.
All right, we're recording.
Okay, so we're actually recording right now?
Stepping on stuff.
I'm not touching nothing.